Hey, Mike with Nerd Problems Gaming here, and today's video will be covering another new Nintendo Switch eShop sale and 10 great RPGs worth buying, so let's get into it. Now the first game on today's list is Battle Chasers Nightwar. And so Battle Chasers Nightwar is a retro-inspired turn-based RPG that's similar to classic RPGs from the PlayStation era like Final Fantasy VII. And so the story features typical fantasy RPG type of tropes, and you'll play as a ragtag bunch of heroes as they try and protect one of their team, a young girl that possesses massive powerful gauntlets, as they also try and take down an evil sorceress. And so it has a cool story, but on top of that, where the game really shines is its compelling combat. And so the combat is really engaging and very strategic as well. You'll really need to strategize and plan out your attacks in each battle, as a lot of your character's abilities will play off each other, and you'll definitely need to manage your abilities effectively if you hope to win. The dungeon crawling is really fun as well. There's also different rankings that you can take on each dungeon, giving you new challenges every time you go in, but on top of that, you can try for a harder challenge to unlock better gear and items throughout your run. And again, this takes place within every dungeon that you find. On top of that, there's a huge world to explore. There's lots of secrets. There's tons of unlockables, things like secret ultimate weapons for your characters and much more. It's a really cool turn-based RPG and it's definitely worth picking up. The next game on today's list is Roguebook. And so Roguebook is a turn-based RPG meets deck builder meets tabletop RPG. And you actually find yourself trapped in a magical book and you need to find a way to escape. And so it's kind of more of an open world like map where you'll be exploring the top pages of this book, and it kind of feels like a board game at the same time where the panels aren't all revealed, and so you'll slowly need to explore the map, uncovering different areas, revealing things like treasure and enemy fights and encounters. It also has sort of a press your luck type mechanic where you don't necessarily need to fight every battle, and if you choose to, it puts your life obviously at risk, but it could have great rewards like new weapons and items to power up your team. The combat is focused more on turn-based combat, but then again, it also uses those deck building mechanics, so you'll be able to steadily improve your deck over time as well. I've talked about this a few times on the channel, but this is definitely the cheapest I've ever seen it. The base game is $2.50 right now, but you can even get the deluxe edition with all the DLC included for only $3.50 right now. So this is the cheapest I've ever seen it, and it's a great time to pick it up if you haven't. The next game is Dragon Quest Builders. And so Dragon Quest Builders is really an action RPG meets Minecraft with a little bit of tower defense thrown in the mix as well. And so this game is actually set in an alternate Dragon Quest universe from the original Dragon Quest game. And so basically at the end of that game, the evil Dragon Lord gives you the choice of joining his forces or battling him to the death. And this time around, you actually decide to join him. And of course, you're quickly betrayed and the Dragon Lord takes over the world. And so you kind of wake up in this world where monsters have taken over, the evil Dragon Lord has won, and you need to help society and the humans rebuild their world. On top of that, you have the special ability to actually build things, and so you need to rebuild the villages, save the humans, and defeat the monsters. And so it's a really cool take on the story, but on top of that, it's super addicting and a lot of fun because you'll not only be leveling up your character, you'll be building out the town, and you can level up the town, making that stronger. You'll unlock new shops for the town where you can get additional new items to power up your character. You can also level up your character from killing enemies, getting stronger, and it's really a whole lot of fun. On top of that, it switches between the general story of like building and mining and exploring the land, and then swaps in some tower defense elements where every so often the town will be attacked by waves of enemies. And so you have to try and defend the town, so that's part of the aspect as well. Properly structuring your town and defending it and keeping those monsters at bay. I didn't think I'd like this game at first because I'm not a huge fan of Minecraft, but this is one of my favorite Dragon Quest games and it's a whole lot of fun. And so if you haven't played Dragon Quest Builders before, it's definitely worth picking up. The next game is the Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection Part 1. And so this is a series of RPGs set in the Mega Man universe. And instead of your typical robots in real life, the robots this time around are actually net navies, and they all live in the World Wide Web and the internet. And you'll actually dive into the internet as Mega Man and control him to stop the evil robot plans of taking over the world. And so these games are a bit more story focused, and they are more action RPGs, but almost mixed with a deck builder as well. And so you'll have this grid-based combat where Mega Man can move around on a grid, and then there'll be enemies that can move around, and you'll be able to have your standard Mega Buster attacks that you can use on the enemies, but on top of that, you'll have a deck of cards that will be made up of different enemies that you've defeated throughout the story. And so that's kind of where the deck building element comes in. You can pick and choose which cards will be in your deck, but it is randomized when they come up, and you can steadily improve that over time as you acquire new cards. And so it's a cool concept. One thing is that some of the puzzles can get quite challenging, as some of the instructions are a bit vague when they give you clues on where to go. So you might need a guide handy for the first couple of games. And this part 1 of the collection includes the first 3 games, and game 3 is actually a 2-part game, kind of like Pokemon, where there's 2 different versions of it. Now part 1 and part 2 are both on sale right now, so you could get the entire Mega Man Battle Network Legacy collection as a whole if you choose, and then you'd get access to over 10 games, but the later ones in the series are similar to the third, where there's 2 versions of each. But if you like action RPGs, deck building, and Mega Man, I think you'll enjoy this game as well. The next game is Dragon Quest XI. Now Dragon Quest XI is one of my favorite RPGs in the Dragon Quest series, but also one of the favorites in recent years as a whole. And so in this game, you play as the Luminary that's on the run as you try and stop an ancient evil from destroying the world. And so you'll build a team of heroes to stop this evil threat, and there's a huge world to explore as well. But what I really enjoy about this game is its addicting combat and level up mechanics. And so the character progression system is almost like a sphere grid, skill tree type setup, where you'll be able to expand your character's moves over time, building them out how you see fit, and specializing in different areas to really fit your play style. On top of that, one of the favorites, the alchemy pot, returns, so you'll be able to craft different weapons and items and armor throughout the game, enhancing your gear. There's a ton of side quests to discover. On top of that, it also has draconian challenges, which are different additional difficulty features that you can add, making the game more challenging and a whole lot of fun. On top of that, with this Nintendo Switch version, you also have the option to go back and forth between a 16-bit graphic style. So you can actually play the game entirely in this retro format, or you can play in the new modern graphics as well. It's really cool how this story ties into the rest of the Dragon Quest series, and if you haven't played this one yet, I definitely recommend it. The next game is Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. Now, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 is an action RPG meets beat 'em up set in the Marvel universe. And so you'll be able to choose from a bunch of different teammates and Marvel heroes, from things like the Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, X-Men, and more. And so you'll go on a quest to stop Thanos from destroying the universe. And so it's got really fun beat 'em up action. On top of that, you can play with local co-op, and you'll really be able to play off your other character's strengths and weaknesses and build your ultimate team. And so if you're a superhero fan, it's a lot of fun getting to explore this universe, playing as all these different heroes. But on top of that, you'll face off against several challenging villains from the entire Marvel universe. And so it's really cool to see how you take down these enemies, and the gameplay is really fast-paced and a lot of fun. So if you like action RPGs, beat 'em ups in the Marvel universe, I definitely recommend it. The next game is Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. And so this game is more of a Dynasty Warriors style game set in the Fire Emblem 3 Houses universe. And so it's kind of an alternate universe where you'll be exploring some of the events that happen throughout the 3 Houses game. You certainly don't need to have played that first, but I think if you have, you'll certainly get a bit more enjoyment out of the story, getting to relive some of those experiences through a different angle. And so similar to that game, you'll start by choosing one of 3 houses to work with, and this really determines your starting set of characters that you can play as well as the overarching story throughout the game. so you'll likely have a high replay value wanting to play through, trying out starting with the various different houses. Now on top of that, it is this hack and slash warrior styles game, but it does have a lot of Fire Emblem elements thrown into the mix as well. And so you'll be able to control different heroes in each battle, and they have a variety of weapon types and abilities, as well as strengths and weaknesses, kind of like the rock, paper, scissors type mechanic that usually happens in Fire Emblem games. And so you'll really need to be strategic controlling these different characters, making sure they're taking on enemies they're strong against and protecting people from ones they're weak against. And so I like that element, and it really felt like a good blending of this action hack and slash RPG mixed with the tactical elements that the Fire Emblem series is known for. The gameplay is super fun and really addicting, improving your characters, building out their skill trees, and taking on the challenging missions. And so if you haven't played this one yet, I definitely recommend it. The next game is Live Alive. And so Live Alive is a classic RPG from the Super Nintendo era that's been remastered for the Switch. And so it never actually originally released in the US. And so this is the first time you'll be able to play it. And they've really made a lot of great enhancements to the game. But the game itself, you actually will choose from several different heroes to kind of play through their own mini story. And each one of these heroes is set in their own kind of universe or timeline. And so you'll be playing with a character from the Wild West, another one's in kind of a distant space odyssey future, and a bunch more as well. And so it's really interesting getting to go back and forth with all these different characters. On top of that, they really bring the game to life with the new 2D, HD, 3D style graphics, which is similar to the graphic style from the recent Octopath Traveler series. It has really awesome music and some challenging puzzles, but really fun combat as well. So if you want to relive a classic RPG, that's a whole lot of fun. I definitely recommend it. The next game on the list is Disgaea 7. Now Disgaea 7 is a tactical RPG set in the Netherworld, filled with over-the-top characters and demons. And so you'll go on a quest to stop the evil shogun from destroying the land, and to do so you'll need to collect 7 founding weapons to take him on. And so this is the 7th game in the Disgaea series. And with that being said, it's definitely one of the best, and I feel like it returns to its roots while also keeping a lot of the great quality of life improvements that have come over the years to the Disgaea series. And so it's hard to not compare this game to Disgaea 6, because Disgaea 6 added a lot of features to the game, some of them not necessarily for the better. And so in that game, you could get your characters to outlandish levels in like the hundreds of thousands. And while the Disgaea series is often known for over-the-top leveling, it usually capped out at 9,999, and they actually brought that back for this game, and I really liked that. I felt like in the other Disgaea game of Disgaea 6, it got so over the top, it was hard to keep track of everything, and it almost felt like nothing mattered. Where this time they bring it down to earth a little bit with 9,999 as the level cap, but they also kept a lot of other great things, like the item world where you can dive into items and level them up individually, upgrade them. They also made a item world reincarnation option, meaning that you can reincarnate your items and make them more powerful, start them over at a lower level but bring some of their stat boosts with them, and add new abilities to them as well. And so this is a really cool aspect because reincarnation as a whole is a really key mechanic to the Disgaea series. You can do that with your characters as well. And so as you power them up and level them up over time, you'll be able to reincarnate them back to level 1, bring a percentage of their stats over, keep all the abilities that you've learned, change classes if you want, having them acquire new abilities, and keep doing that process over and over until you build your ultimate team. And so that's really cool that they brought that back. Another thing that I like that they did is that they limited the AI features of the game. It was really over the top in Disgaea 6, and you could really just set the game on autopilot and beat it without really doing much effort. But this time around, they've limited that, and you can only use it on levels you've cleared before. And so I think that brought a lot of the fun back to the game, while still giving you that convenience ability of using auto battle if you chose to. This game is one of the best in the Disgaea series, and I definitely recommend it. All right, the final game on today's list is Star Renegades. And so Star Renegades is a roguelike turn-based RPG where you'll play as a band of heroes trying to take on the evil AI Imperium from destroying the universe, but also the multiverse as a whole. And so it's kind of a cool concept of a story, but you'll play as this ragtag bunch of heroes that grows over time, that's starting this rebellion to take on this evil Imperium and save the universe and multiverse as a whole. And so again, as you progress, you'll be able to upgrade your heroes, collect more heroes, adding them to your team, and they all really have kind of a unique play style and skill sets and abilities. But where this game really shines is its strategy combat, and so you'll really need to plan out your turns and strategies if you hope to be successful. It can be quite challenging in that sense, where there'll be kind of an active time bar showing you when enemies and your heroes are going to take their turns. But a really cool feature is that you can actually damage enemies enough to break them, and then they'll miss their turn for that round and also take extra damage at the same time. And so if you really plan things strategically, you can just keep breaking enemies over and over until you defeat them, giving them little hope of surviving. And so it's a really cool concept. And on top of that, every planet that you visit to try and stop the Imperium is kind of procedurally generated, so it's a unique experience every time that you go through. This gameplay loop is really addicting and a lot of fun, and so if you like turn-based RPGs, but also some roguelike elements, I think you'll enjoy this game as well. Well, again, that wraps up our list of 10 new RPGs worth buying in this latest Nintendo Switch eShop sale. If you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button as it really helps out the channel. And if you're going to pick up any of these games, let us know in the comments below. Or if you've played them before, let us know your thoughts on the games. On top of that, if you'd like to help support the channel, pick out content and more, consider becoming a patron of ours at nerdproblemsgaming.com/Patreon. And another really cool way you can help support the channel is we actually partnered with a game store, Nutmeg Games. So if you like Pokemon cards, Magic cards, and more, you can actually head to nutmeggames.com/nerdproblemsgaming or use our promo code nerdproblemsgaming at checkout, and you'll help support our channel and get 10% off your order at the same time. So if you like things like board games, Pokemon cards, and more, definitely head there to take advantage of that great deal. And if you like videos like this on video games, board games, and everything nerdy, check out one of our other videos here. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications to get the latest updates of new nerd videos we put out, and to make sure you can take advantage of these great deals on future sale videos we put out as well. But once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you more soon.